Knives out. That's the focus of tonight's angle. All right, record high gas prices, markets collapsing, with the S&P entering the bear market territory. China's threatening war over Taiwan, and on the #1 issue facing Americans, well, we tried to warn them. Former Clinton Treasury Secretary Larry Summers has been warning about the dark clouds forming over the Biden economy for months. Data are pointing more towards higher inflation. These are simply not serious people. If they were, they would invite Larry Summers to the White House to give the entire cabinet and senior staff, like Ron Klain, a tutorial in basic economics. Every single person on his economic team should be fired. In fact, anyone who advised the president that inflation was transitory should resign or be terminated. But Joe Biden and whatever combo of Jill, his sister, and Hunter have kept the whole plate thing spinning these past 18 months, they're refusing to budge on policy or personnel. They decided just, deny reality as long as possible.
I see important transitory influences at work, and I don't anticipate that it will be permanent.
That most of the price increases we've seen were expected and are expected to be temporary.
Was it wrong to consider inflation transitory?
We have to address the fact that we got to deal with the fact that folks are paying for gas, paying for groceries, and need solutions to it.
If we want to get inflation down, I think continuing to make progress against the pandemic is the most important thing we can do.
Oh, that's my favorite at the end. Now, no matter how much Americans were and are suffering, no matter how low Biden sinks in the polls, the White House would not and will not change course.
What is the Granholm plan to increase oil production in America?
Oh, my God. That is hilarious. Would that I had the magic wand on this.
Well, I can tell you, if voters had a magic wand, they'd want to make Hurd disappear from the cabinet. Their steadfast refusal to change course despite the ongoing damage to the American family, it's really the definition of fanaticism. Now, remember, they've convinced themselves that the reason voters are unhappy is only because their message hasn't been able to break through yet. So supply chain issues, that's a comms problem. $120 to fill your tank for your SUV, that's a comms problem. No baby formula, that's just bad PR. Biden's so desperate, he's even hitting the press at this point. Why don't they publicize all the good he's done for America?
There's a lot of major things we've done, but what we haven't done is we haven't been able to communicate it in a way that is, let me say another way.
Well, see, that's kind of perfect. Yeah, we haven't been able to communicate it.
But look how the press has changed. It just, everything gets sensationalized in ways that, but I'm convinced we can get through this.
How incredibly insulting to the American people. This is sensationalized?
Just to get to school and home every single day, it's costing us $115 a week.
It's painful to go to the gas station, and I think we're all just feeling that.
I need Jesus and all the other saints to come and help me. It's too much.
His policies are inflicting real pain on real people. And he expects that no one's going to report on it? The fact is, their agenda, though, is working as planned, isn't it? In order to hit their climate change targets, to reset capitalism, as Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum put it, Americans must become poorer, period. And that's exactly what's happening now. The vendetta against domestic oil production and their desire for open borders, of course, the war in Ukraine, more printing of more money, more borrowing, more racial recriminations, they're doing exactly what they're designed to do. Usher in a necessary period of American decline. So the European model of high gas prices, more government spending, less personal freedom, that was always their preferred path because it was considered far superior to anything the traditional American approach could offer. So this far-left viewpoint, once limited to college campuses, now defines the Democrat Party. Now, as the angle predicted during the campaign of 2020, a feeble-minded grifter like Joe Biden, he was too weak or too stupid to resist this more ridiculous left-wing path for a more sensible one. But even after Joe Biden did everything they asked, supported every idiotic growth-killing policy the left pushed, the Democrats have still pulled the switchblade on him. Since they can't blame their own policies for bringing ruin to the average American, they too believe it's all a PR problem. And if it's a PR problem, they need a better messenger in 2024 for their social and political revolution. Both the old and the new guard are tossing Biden to the curb, even before the midterms. David Axelrod told the New York Times, the presidency is a monstrously taxing job, and the stark reality is that the president would be closer to 90 than 80 at the end of a second term, and that would be a major issue. And here's what went down when AOC was pressed about 2024.
President Biden, he is saying he's going to run again in 2024. Will you support him?
You know, if the president chooses to run again in 2024, I mean, first of all, I'm focused on winning this majority right now and preserving a majority this year in 2022. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
That's not a yes.
Yeah, you know, I think we should endorse when we get to it. But I believe that the president has been doing a very good job so far. And, you know, should he run again, I think that I think we'll take a look at it.
Try to diagram that sentence. Even his own press secretary doesn't feel comfortable talking about Biden's re-election campaign.
Is the president running for re-election?
He has, first of all, let's reset for a second. I cannot talk about election. The president, as you know, has been asked that question many times. His answer has been pretty simple, which is yes.
Okay, this is all just an epic cast-off. So this is what I'm telling you tonight. Welcome to the lame duck administration. And Biden and his family are somehow, I guess, surprised by this. Had he worked with Republicans, he had taken a more moderate approach, he'd be more popular with America, but he would have alienated the radical and powerful forces in his own party. He couldn't do that. Now, for a sneak peek into the Democrats' intransigence on policy and approach, look no further than the January 6th hearings today. Now, we couldn't help but notice the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, where a graphic was showing the bottom falling out of the markets. Now, so as Americans struggle in 2022, the Democrats can't stop talking about 2020.
An attack on the American people by trying to rob you of your voice in our democracy, and in doing so, lit the fuse that led to the horrific violence of January 6th.
They marched on the Capitol at his request, and hundreds of them besieged and invaded the building at the heart of our constitutional republic.
Oh, my God. Play that in Gitmo, and they'll get all the information they want. Now, even the media knows this isn't going to help them.
Even if it doesn't change people's votes in the midterm elections, Democrats think that this is an existential crisis for American democracy. When I go out into the states and have been recently talking to people, that's what people tell me that they're really focused on. Gas prices and all of the different things that are making life more expensive for a lot of people. Americans aren't focused on these hearings in the way that we are. That doesn't mean...
Yeah, that doesn't mean check out the new IBD poll. Biden's approval rating sank to its lowest level in the latest poll for Investors Business Daily, with just 37% of American adults approving of how he's handling the presidency. The poll also found that 90% of Americans are concerned about the path of inflation over the next 12 months. 53% think we're already in a recession. Yet again, the Democrats persist. No personnel changes, no policy changes. Ride this lame horse of big government, big green socialism right into midterm oblivion. I don't know. I was thinking about this today. Maybe the Democrats truly believe that they can convince Americans to accept a lower standard of living. After all, for decades, corrupt liberal leadership, it's plagued cities like Baltimore or Detroit, Hartford, Connecticut, yet these cities keep voting for Democrats, election cycle after election cycle. So when will this end? The truth is, though, Democrats won't change. They won't jettison the far left until they're forced to. Bill Clinton was smart enough to pivot in 1994. That Democrat Party, though, has long since been buried. In 2024, they're going to need to suffer a 1984-style wipeout in order for us to restore America. And whether they run Mayor Pete or Amy Klobuchar or Kamala, it's not going to matter. Their core policies will not change. And the outcome for American taxpayers, for seniors, for young people will be the same. Despair and decline. Only with a new messenger. It will not work. And that's the angle.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.